Why Don't Students Like School? Book by David Willingham. Presentation by Lindsay Bell, Emily Diedrich, Caitlin Lumpkins, and Jacqueline Wood. Understanding, working, and long-term memory is key to ensuring student success. As a teacher, it is crucial to student success that background knowledge, facts, concepts, and skills are all taught to students. Background knowledge is crucial for developing the cognitive skill of chunking, which is how the brain organizes information so that it may work with more things in working memory, as well as work with those pieces of information most effectively. Consider the example on the screen. If you tried to memorize these letters as they are, it would be very difficult to remember. Most people cannot memorize every letter without studying this sequence over and over again. Now take a look at the letters when they are arranged in this manner. It's much easier, right? That's because your working memory has chunked the letters into working units in your working memory. Therefore, because background knowledge allows for more chunking will allow students to work with the material using higher order thinking skills, such as application, analysis, creation, and evaluation. Let's take a look at how working memory works in conjunction with both long-term memory and environmental stimuli. This diagram displays how working memory combines environmental stimuli with background knowledge stored in long-term memory and integrates them to create new knowledge and develop new skills. Willingham argues, therefore, that the more background knowledge a student has, the more he or she is able to acquire. This directly relates to the achievement gap. If a student comes into your classroom with a certain set of skills and background knowledge, but that knowledge does not connect to what you're providing as their environmental stimuli, the information will not stick, and the student will fall farther behind his or her peers with background knowledge similar to your context. Facts should be taught across the curriculum because they are crucial in developing concepts and skills. Here we turn to the concept of drilling. Without readily being able to access basic facts, such as multiplication tables, working memory is preoccupied with supplying these basic answers as opposed to automatized recall, making it harder to hold the information necessary to fully understand concepts or work through problems. Willingham argues that practice is necessary to drill these basic facts so they can automatically be recalled from long-term memory, like in Laymoff's pepper technique. Being able to quickly recall facts, seemingly without thinking about it, is an important foundation for future knowledge. But drilling is not the only way to increase learning with praxis. Concepts and skills also require intense practice from students, similar to Laymoff's at-bats technique. Willingham differentiates between experience and practice in this regard. He explains that experience is simply being exposed to a skill repeatedly, whereas practice requires putting forth effort, intentionally trying to improve your performance in an area. Meaningful practice is required to learn and perfect a skill or concept. There are misconceptions about intelligence and its role in the learning process. The theory of students having multiple intelligences is not necessarily true. Willingham states that an enormous amount of research exploring this idea has been conducted in the last 50 years, but no one has found consistent evidence supporting a theory. Willingham discusses 3 different claims about multiple intelligences that center around Howard Gardner's 8 intelligences. Here is a chart listing different cognitive styles that Willingham presents that are similar to Gardner's multiple intelligences. The chart highlights specific styles teachers can use to frame students' specific intellectual styles and abilities, whereas Gardner's 8 multiple intelligences present different ways of thinking, as opposed to different areas of expertise. Willingham also states that a way to deal with different types of learners. The teacher can only hope the student will use a cognitive strength to make up for their weakness. This is impossible to rely on, and most will not work with students. Teachers cannot bolster a weakness with a strength. Overall, teachers need to focus on valuing their students' academic intelligence. As a teacher, it's very important to know the difference between some key terms: intelligence, styles, and abilities. Cognitive ability is the capacity for or success in certain types of thought. how students deal with content and then reflect what they know. Cognitive styles are the foundations of how the students think and learn. When it comes to different types of learners, teachers usually think of students having more ability than the other, but do not think of how certain students learn better from certain cognitive styles. Some ways to deal with different types of learners in the classroom are to focus on the content when it comes to choosing a cognitive style. Use change throughout the lesson to gain attention, and remember that every student is valuable, no matter what their intelligence or abilities. Students may have differing views on intelligence. This concept can affect students' performance, effort, and achievement. Students should be encouraged to adopt an opinion on intelligence so that they see intelligence as malleable and not fixed. Malleable intelligence is intelligence that can be shaped by hard work, dedication, and effort. The concept of fixed intelligence revolves around the idea that intelligence is set and determined and is something that cannot be built upon. A student's view on intelligence affects the motivation for learning. If a student believes intelligence is fixed, a student is more likely to see a task as just too difficult and use this as an excuse to quit. A student who sees intelligence as malleable sees a challenge as something that can be achieved and worked towards, and as something that will build on the student's intelligence. Students who believe intelligence is malleable may be more likely to choose a challenging task over a simple task, because they know that conquering the task can work towards intelligence. Encouraging students to see intelligence as something to be worked towards is important to their appreciation and regard towards learning. In order to build students' appreciation for learning and challenges, it is beneficial to use praise. However, the praise should be used to praise a student's abilities, not a student's character or personality. Emphasizing the journey a student has taken to get to the correct answer is better. It's more helpful to the student's motivation and exuberance for learning than complimenting a student on his or her intelligence. Willingham opens his discussion on different learning styles with his statement that children are more alike than different in terms of how they think and learn. Willingham wants to emphasize that yes, students can learn in a variety of ways, but that is not because students have differing learning styles. Instead, often the activity or lesson geared towards that certain type of learner is simply good teaching. All students will benefit from the activity or lesson because it is good teaching. This relates to the concept of universal design, meaning that if a teacher makes accommodations for a learner who has different needs, often that accommodation is one that will help all of the students learn more effectively. By using different styles of learning, the information is presented in ways that will encourage students, but the style that the lesson is taught in is not being tested. This means that a kinesthetic learner is not going to be tested on his or her ability to relate to knowledge with body movements. The important factor is that the student grasps the concept of the lesson that was taught, no matter how it was taught. Willingham does admit that there is no scientific evidence that proves the existence of differing learning styles, but that he does not want to suggest that differentiation should not be used in the classroom. Instead, he claims that, when in doubt, teachers should use their knowledge of learning styles in directing activities to those different styles because that will be effective for all students. Multiple cognitive concepts play into instruction and its effects on students. Willingham discusses cognition at great length. Specifically, he distinguishes between experts and novices and confronts the question of how to get students to think like experts. However, Willingham sees this concept as faulty and argues that students can never really think like experts. The difference between experts and students is such: students are ready to comprehend, but not create knowledge. An expert, be they an expert in math, history, or basketball, contributes knowledge to their field of expertise by creating mathematical proofs, historical interpretations, or signature moves. Students, on the other hand, work to comprehend and imitate the theories, proofs, and moves of the expert. Since experts and novices are in different levels of cognition, Willingham encourages teachers to structure their lessons around what novice students are able to do. In other words, Don't expect novices to learn by doing what experts do. Instead, the activities appropriate for novices are those which experts used to do, and which are essential steps on the road to becoming experts. Willingham clarifies himself a little by stating that sometimes it is appropriate for novices to do the same activities as experts, but not because they will greatly increase students' cognition. Instead, activities asking students to create or analyze like an expert work more towards increasing motivation than cognition. What do you think about Willingham's distinction between experts and novices? Much of what he says seems contrary to other theories about learning that we have discussed in our mini education classes. Do you believe that students can create knowledge? Do you believe that certain activities increase only motivation or cognition as well? Think hard about these questions, and in class, we will try and find an answer.